This is the story of one of the best mornings I've ever had on safari, and potentially the best morning of my life. Now, it started off in Zimbabwe. We're in Hwange National Park, and we're doing a safari. And I don't know if you've done a safari. If you haven't, essentially, safari looks a lot like this. There's a lot of waiting around for moments to happen. Usually, especially for photographers, a lot of that waiting around happens when the light is perfect. And when the light's perfect, either be it sunrise or sunset, you're rushing around driving, trying to find an animal or a subject to photograph with these perfect conditions. And that doesn't happen very often. And then when the time of day gets brighter and the days go on longer, your light becomes really harsh and photography becomes difficult. So we're sort of chasing these moments very early on and very late into the day. Now, this morning in particular was unusual. It was the foggiest day I've ever seen in Africa. It kind of felt more like we were out in the sort of highlands of Scotland rather than being in the middle of a national park in Zimbabwe. And instead of elks and big stags, we had hippos and herons coming out of the mist. We had impala and sable. So this was a very unusual morning, and I was excited. I always say when people ask me what sort of I'm looking to see on safari, or if there's a specific animal I want to photograph, I always tell them that I'm less interested in the animals and I'm more interested in the moments and the conditions that sort of make shots unique. There's a really famous saying in photography there: if you can't take pictures of exceptional animals, take pictures of boring animals in exceptional circumstances. And this was definitely an exceptional circumstance, and luckily enough for me, within 5 minutes of leaving camp into the fog, our guide, Tuso, heard something which I thought he was crazy for. He said he heard a very small lion roar. I thought he was going mad, or he heard a noise in the car or something. But you always have to trust your guides. You know, they know best. These guys spend their lives out in the parks, and they pick up on things that no one else can. And so we hear the roar, he hears the roar, and then he calls on the radio to check if anyone else has heard the roar. No one has. And then 30 seconds later, this happens, and we see a lion sort of sitting up from a bush and moving away. And it's exciting, and the sort of blood starts pumping because he got this really unique situation of fog, morning light, and lights, and it's kind of what all sort of your photography dreams are made of. So we start by following this lion, and this one solo female lion immediately links up with a small sort of pride of 7 or 8 lions with a mix of juveniles at different ages and a few of the adult females, and they sort of come together and they're running, and then they start moving off into the mist, and it really is special. And I'm really trying to focus on capturing all of it as much as I can, and I use this Instaace 360 Pro to sort of constantly film back B-roll and sort of capture footage that I miss. And on my Sony camera, I'm trying to photograph. I'm trying to prioritize photographs at the moment because it's special and it's unique, and I want to be able to say, you know, I'm predominantly a photographer rather than videographer, and there are obviously moments where I wish I'd have kept filming, and there's moments where I wish I'd taken the photo. It's very rare that you can do both on the big camera, which is why I've got this running in the background. And then we proceed to spend the next 30 minutes sort of following these lions around, and we go and park up, watch them come towards us, and then they run off into the distance, and then we sort of move off and we try and find them again. And we eventually park up at this spot, and it's, you know, the backdrop is beautiful. There's trees, there's a horizon line, and we still have this really dense fog. And I'm excited. We stop, and I get as low as I can. And out of these sort of tall grass, the sort of clinging on grasses of the rainy season, we get these pride of like 8 or 9 lions just emerging out of the grasses. And it's something I've never seen before, and it's so special. I've got a few clips, and I've got a few photographs, and I've got a few B-roll on this camera. And even with all that, it's very difficult to convey exactly what it looked like and exactly how it felt, because it was so special. We had the sort of big female lion come towards us, and then a few cubs splitting either side of the vehicle, and then they go off again. And at this point, we figure we'd leave them. Apparently, Tuso gets a call on the radio, and another car has seen another female with 3 much younger cubs moving away. Now we're in Hwange, and Hwange has open borders with different concessions. And so this female with the 3 younger cubs is moving out of the national park, and if we go into the park, we can't then follow them out. So we get on a bit of a rush, and we try and head towards these lions. And we're driving through mist and puddles. We're driving past zebras, stopping for a few heartbeats to take it in, and then we're off hunting these. Well, not hunting, obviously. We're off searching for these lions. And again, sort of emerging out of the mist on our left, we see this nice, healthy-looking female lion, and the grass is really tall at the start, and so, you know, at first we're like, oh, it's just her, and then we start seeing these little tails just moving up out of the grass, and I'm like, oh no, the cubs are there. And we watch as this female and the 3 cubs walk past the vehicle. Tuso does a great job of getting the vehicle lined up into a beautiful spot. And then they walk in front of the vehicle, and as I'm trying to move this camera across to try and capture some B-roll, the female and the cubs start walking onto this termite mound and really posing beautifully. So the footage on this camera is a little skewed, but I managed to get a few nice photos of the cubs, and their fur is just drenched with the mist, and they're wet, and it's just a really unique situation. So it's a really, really nice morning, and honestly, if we'd have seen nothing else the entire day, I would have been happy, but then then it gets really special. So we leave the mother and the 3 cubs as they pass across the railway line, and because we're in the park, we don't follow them. We just move on, looking for other birds and different game and impalas and whatever we see. You know, the mist is still here, and you know, we've got a full morning of searching still before we want to stop, really. So we drive off. And we don't see much, especially safaris, especially in the wet season. It's difficult, and the big animal viewing is harder. We see a few elephants, we see a few more hippos, we see green wood hoopoe, and then a few of the zebras and that sort of thing, but nothing crazy until we turn a corner, and then there's another 3 young male lions. I think at this point we must have seen 15 or 16 different individual lions, and it's just crazy, in different spots across different areas of the park. And these 3 young male lions have been left alone, which doesn't happen often either. Usually they're sort of not allowed to be too far from the pride, but here they are, they're sort of messing around, and they're really excited and sort of full of energy still. The day is quite cool because of the mist, and they've got so much energy just to burn off before it gets too hot. And the mist is eventually going to go. Like the sun's going to come and it's going to burn off. And while it's cool, these animals like to just move around and enjoy. So these 3 male lions are really just having a good time playing. And we see them climbing trees, we see them jumping at each other, they're playing and pouncing. And again, I'm struggling to film and take pictures and just try and capture this moment in the best way that I can, because we still have this really unique mist situation coming. So we watch as these 3 young male lions move around the sort of grassland, the thick grasses. They climb up a tree, they jump down off the tree onto the ground, and they're playing and they're fighting in this sort of beautiful grassland. And then they decide to settle on this dead tree that's lying perfectly eye level with the Jeep, and they sit there for what feels like a lifetime. And this situation is so special because it means that for me, I can sort of really enjoy the moment. I can film, I can take pictures, I can think about the shots, and I can just, I can live that. And especially, I don't know if other photographers feel this, but when I'm looking through that eyepiece, that's all that exists. Like, the world just stops. It doesn't matter where I am, it doesn't matter what I'm looking at. If I'm looking through the camera at an animal, everything else disappears, and I just exist there. It's such a strange experience, and I don't really know how to convey that better. So for me, the world just narrows onto these 3 lions sitting on a dead log. They're sort of grooming, they're sort of showing signs of sort of different emotions or whatever these lions are feeling, but they are perfect. We still have this thick fog behind them, which is sort of almost allowing for high key photography. So along the back of the lions, you can really see the fine details of the hairs, and they're all damp, so there's a lot of contrast in the hair. And then they've decided to perch beautifully on this dead tree, which means that they're eye level with the Jeep and with me, which means I don't have to shoot down, I don't have to shoot up. I'm shooting dead on, I'm shooting eye level, which is every photographer's dream. So at eye level, we've got this really nice high key background, and then we have this really beautiful detail in this dead tree that they're sort of lying on. And as we watch for what must have been 15 minutes, the mists slowly burn off. We get this gorgeous sort of golden hour at 10 o'clock hitting these lions' faces and sort of just creating the most beautiful atmosphere. And I managed to capture a few photographs that I am so immensely proud of. And I call it Brother's Pride. Essentially what it is these two young male lions that we followed for about 40 minutes sitting on this dead log, and the first one is just sort of rubbing its head gently against the second. And it looks so emotive, and it looks like there's so much meaning behind that rub, and these guys are, they're the future of the pride, potentially. They could form a coalition, and these young bonds that they're forming now could be so integral to the sort of life that they're going to lead. So yeah, we're sort of watching as these three male lions just sort of lays about on this dead log, and it is just magical. I can still see it so vividly in my head, and I've got film and photographs and B-roll. Yeah, it was spectacular. And then they eventually move off, and sort of one goes and then another goes, and all of a sudden the three of them are moving again. And at this point the mist is sort of burned off almost completely, and the day is just instantly getting hot, as it does in Africa. Sorry, Flo is just interrupted. Bless her. So we've got these three male lions now sort of trying to find a shady spot before the heat of the day really kicks in, and before it's too hot for them to do anything. So as they move off, initially they perch on this little nice hill sort of thing, tiny little hillock, and the light's hitting them gorgeous. We're getting some really nice portraits, and then we leave them to it. That's it. They're clearly going to sit here for a while. We've had an incredible time with them. The day's just starting to get hot, and so we move off and we find a beautiful little spot for coffee, and we just really try and appreciate the morning that we've just had, because it was spectacular. I mean, I'm sure I'll put a number in here of the video, but we must have seen 18, 19 individual lions, cubs as old as 2 months, all the way up to 2 years, young male lions, female lions. And then just as we're getting ready to have coffee, we find the big boy, and he's in a bush, and he has a young zebra that he's caught, probably taking advantage of the mists, making hunting a bit easier for him. And he's very deep into the bush. I only got a few clips of him, but we really saw the whole pride that morning before the first coffee. And I knew when I woke up and saw the mist, I knew we could be onto something incredible, but I thought I'd be getting glimpses of silhouettes, that odd moment that could be cool. I didn't realize what we were in for, and I really hope that is conveyed in this video, and you can just feel how excited I am for this and how proud I am of some of the pictures I managed to get this morning, because I don't think I'll see conditions like that again, ever. I'll see lions again, I'm sure. I'll go back to Africa, I'll take more pictures, but to have beautiful mists, beautiful behaviors, lions just going about their day, and so many different lions in different moments, in different conditions. I don't think I'll ever have a morning like that again. And I also don't think I'll ever forget it. I hope that wasn't too rambly, and it was easy to listen to, and I hope you enjoyed it. And you just sort of felt a bit more of what I could feel while I was there. Yeah. Thank you for watching.